We're gonna do the Delta Force stories today. Let's do this. Just get it running.
Um, there, there's the night I got shot. I shouldn't have walked out of that one alive. Um, it's that one's a long story. I'll try to give you
Dig in.
and I'll try to give you and again it's a unit story, so I'll make it unfortunately somewhat vague. But the backside of the story still remains. Is we were going after a very very high target individual, and the way we wanted to go after him, uh, we were told that we were going to go tonight, and for these reasons, and we basically told him, hey, there's a smarter way to do business. We trust us. This is what we do. We'll hit them tomorrow, and under the circumstances that we want. And they basically said, that's fine. Then we'll send the Rangers. and and we basically got together. We're like, people are going to die tonight if the Rangers go, and that's not knocking the Rangers. The Rangers are great dudes, but at the end of the day, they're not us. And this, when you do this job long enough, you know when you get a warning order if this is going to be one of those missions or not. And this was just going to be one of those missions. Everything was difficult about the target. There was no good way to get in. There was a lot of them. It was going to be a nasty one, and it was. And so we basically took it to a vote, and we're like, hey, are we going to go tonight, or are we going to let the Rangers go take this one? And every person in that room raised their hand. And again, it wasn't for glory purposes. Like we truly believe we were saving guys' lives that night by us taking a bad mission that we normally would not have taken. So we take off on this target, and just everything was difficult about it. Everyone loves the movie when guys are fast roping on the target. You don't want to fast rope on the target. Let me tell you, you don't want to be 30 feet off the ground on the noisiest thing in the valley, dangling on a rope, or waiting for your turn to dangle on a rope. It is not a good feeling. It's a good way to get a helicopter shot down. It's a good way to get guys shot before they even get a chance to fight. So even though there are times it's the right call, it's not. It's rarely is it option A. We couldn't take that, and so unfortunately, this target was right in the middle of the village. So really, the only good way to do it was to land outside the village and run all the way, into target, which unfortunately is going to take some time, and the surprise is probably going to be given. That's going to be given up. So that's what we did. We took that option, and by the time we got to target, there wasn't a single person inside the target house. But there was a fresh fire going. There's a lot of Taliban paper trail. So we knew someone was there. We knew the intel was right. We knew they were there that night. That they just heard the helicopters and took off. So we had most of the assault team had a follow-on target they were going to go hit. We had reason to believe a house not too far away was a family member's house, and they were going to go do a follow-on target there. Seemed like a reasonable place for him to go. I was on what's called squirter duty that night. Familiar with the term?
Squirter?
Yeah.
Yeah, when guys
patrol, squirter duty.
Yeah, when they just when guys start spraying out in all directions, they could be running for weapons, they could be running just to run. But yeah, you'll explain it better to the audience.
That's exactly right. Yeah, sometimes I hear the helos and they don't exactly have a plan. They just know they don't want to be in the house. They assume the guys in those helos are coming for them. So they'll usually, like I said, it's usually not a pre-planned thing they do. They just run and they hide in a field. They hide behind trees. They hide behind rocks. Anywhere they feel like they've gone far enough, they just kind of hunker down. So it was me, a combo guy, a couple Afghans, and a dog guy. And but I was the only operator on the detail going out, and that's usually a no. Even though I had other Americans with me, you really want more than one operator with you, because at the end of the day, that combo guy was a Green Beret and the dog handler was a Green Beret. But in those roles they're filling, they're not filling Green Beret roles, if you will. Their job now is to be a dog guy. Their job now is to be the world's best combo guy. So I was really the only shooter going out, and that was definitely a mistake on my part. But I didn't want to take an assaulter off the follow-on crew, and leave them short. So I didn't take another one with me, and we went around. There were several pockets of small groups of individuals hiding from us. We took care of them pretty quick. And then we hear over the radio that the second place was a dry hole. And so now that makes squirter duty even more important, because he's here. We know he's here. We know he's somewhere. And if he's not in any of these two houses, he's probably hiding in one of these squirter pockets. So one of the second, I didn't know at the time, but was going to be the second to last pocket of squirters I come up against. They're hiding in this orchard, and I hate orchards. Orchards are the worst, because ISR can tell you, or whoever's giving you information can tell you how many people are in there, but it's rarely right. There's just too many places to hide, and it's people get shot up in orchards. I say fairly often, but it's not what you want. This orchard has this like half wall around this whole orchard. This orchard's about half the size of the football field, with a half wall that surrounds it. And we're sneaking up to this orchard, and I can see a group of them talking about 5 yards from the half wall. And so I tell everyone, I don't know if I've ever told this story in this much detail. And I tell everyone, I said, hey, everyone stay here. I'm going to move up to this half wall, and after I throw a grenade, but I want you guys to move up online, and and that'll kick off this assault.
I'm not that good.
And I am giddy. Like, I'm already thinking this is going to be awesome. Like, the boys by the fire, when they hear this story, it's going to be amazing. And I sneak my way up to this half wall, and I'm kind of laying on my back with the half wall right here, and I get the grenade out, and I'm getting ready to chuck the grenade over this half wall, and I'm just excited. I'm like, man, this is going to be a good one. And I look over one last time to see if the guys are in their position, and this one Afghan is still kind of moving into his position, and he trips in the middle of the night. He trips and he lands. And I could hear those guys, speaking whatever language they're speaking. They're super close. And when he trips, they stop talking. It was so loud. And then I hear him running to the half wall. And as I'm standing here, their AKs are now over the half wall, just spraying everywhere. They just know there is a sound in the darkness. And I'm like, and I remember sitting there going, as they're just emptying mags with their barrels a couple feet over my face, going, just mad at the Afghan that he took this amazing moment from me. And so after they get done, spraying, I felt like I knew they were running away, but I didn't want to be wrong, and put my hand up there while they're reloading and get my hand shot holding a grenade. When I was, what felt like forever. It was a couple seconds, and I knew they weren't there anymore. I popped up real quick, and I threw my grenade as hard as I could. Here's another thing that will surprise a lot of people. Grenades don't kill people, especially out in the open air in a field.
Not in there anymore.
I mean, you'll wound them, and you'll piss them off, but grenades don't kill people. And they end up running away. And at this point, now I'm just super pissed off at them that They shot at our guys. I'm mad that
Man, the killer
my
is on
moment of glory was
car.
taken away by an Afghan tripping in the dark. And so I make sure that they're followed. And we haven't got Jackpot yet. So I'm fairly certain he's in this group. So they end up running away about a click away, 1,000 meters away from the target location. That's normally too far for a small group to venture out from the main element. Hindsight's always 20/20. At that point, I should have called for a couple more operators to plus up and let them know that I was, going this far away from the main element. But I didn't. I was just out of anger, followed them, and at this point, I get talked on, and I get told, "Hey, they are in this. They're in this area." And as we get really close to them, it's just the way the world works. Our comms go completely dark. We can't get a message out. We can't get a message in. So now it's just me and this small team without any comms at all, wandering around this small area that we know they're at, but we can't get any further intel of exactly where they're hiding like we kind of normally do. So there's this, and we're in this big field, and the best way to describe it is there's this big bomb crater in this field. And I remember going up, looking inside it. It was a very dark night, no loom night. Your nods don't work as good on a no loom night. Like, your nods aren't just magic. They amplify the existing light. So a little bit of moonlight helps out your nods immensely. So it was a no moonlight, no loom night, and it was raining that night. And so, they're all fogged up, no loom. I look down there, and it didn't look like anything. So we go searching around. At this point, we get a little bit of radio chatter in and out talking about, hey, where are you guys at? Hey, the helos are running out of gas. They're either going to have to go all the way back and refuel and come back, which is going to take an hour, or we need you guys to hurry up and, get done doing whatever you're doing and come back. And so we huddle up, and I tell them, I said, hey, all right, let's go back. But before we go back, that crater, I just my spider senses, whatever it is, like, won't let me, completely, I just don't feel right. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? And I had a couple ideas. I thought about throwing a grenade in that crater, but if I was wrong and they were hiding somewhere else, I would have definitely given up our position. So I didn't want to do that. Right, wrong, or indifferent, people can armchair this decision all they want. But my plan was, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get us up on a line, and it's called a white light blip, which means I'm just going to turn on my white light for just a split second and kind of look underneath my nods so I can absolutely rule this out. And the thought process was, if I white light blip it, maybe, if they're not looking in this direction, they might see something, but, chances are they don't, they'll just go, did you see that? They, may not have really known where we are. It's really unusual. We don't normally use white lights, on nighttime operations. And like I said, I had to clear this depression, and my nods just weren't good enough to do it. So I go up there, and I go to white light blip it, and I could see at that point, those weren't rocks at the bottom of this depression. It was rocks and guys hiding underneath blankets. And in fact, I kind of didn't even intend to see anything. I kind of was just like, well, I'm just going to, I blipped it. I started to turn away. And in my mind, it registered what I just saw. And so I came back and kept the white light on. And I said, the G-rated version is, there they are, get them. And we start shooting them. Unfortunately, I was the only one to take shots. The Afghans were more of a spectator that night, and the The first guy I shot was still underneath his blanket, so he died, didn't even know why. The second guy I transitioned over to was just kind of starting to look underneath his blanket. I had a suppressed gun at the time, but I wasn't running subsonic ammo, so you can hear it.
Right.
So between the white light and the rounds going off, I mean, he was interested to see what was going on, and so I gave him the good news. And so the next guy over, he's a little bit further out underneath his blanket and starting to reach for his gun.
3 people.
And so I give him the same treatment as other 2 friends.
Whatever you do,
Oh, come
do
on.
it for less.
I like to say
At Harbor Freight.
Friends got. But every person I'm transitioning over to is a little bit closer to being up and ready. And so, I send 4 to 6 rounds at each guy. But here's another thing: it's no one shouldn't say no one. You shouldn't. No one shoots guys twice and moves on. Like you shoot guys until they stop, until they're no longer a threat. So everyone's getting 4 or 6. The first guy got like 8 rounds. When I transition over to the last guy, he has his gun coming up, and I'm still and I just transitioned over to him, and I'm thinking he's closer to shooting me than I am him, and I pushed my gun as hard and fast as I can, threw a couple rounds his way. He went on full auto and sprayed up. The first couple rounds hit the base of my feet, kind of walking up. One of the rounds hits me right in my forearm,
probably over.
breaks my arm in half, and then the last round, as it turned me, it went right through the middle of my nods and broke my nods in half, and they're dangling on my face, and I spin around like 4 times and hit the ground. And I remember laying in the mud going, damn it. I knew I was going to get shot one day. I was the only guy on my team without a Purple Heart. The only guy. And I just remember going, that didn't hurt as bad as I thought it was going to hurt. And at that time, our combo guy, this all happens in a matter of 5 seconds. Our combo guy runs up and throws a grenade down into the hole. Or not a hole, down into this big depression. And whatever it does, it probably lands beside a rock, and it goes off. It doesn't hit him. But what it does is it reminds him that he has a grenade. And this happened for whatever reason on this particular rotation. Almost every time we introduced grenades, we got a grenade back. It's almost like reminding them, oh yeah, we carry these too. So he throws a grenade out of the hole, and I'm laying on my back, and it lands within arm's distance of me. And what saved my life was a muddy, rainy night. It sunk down into the mud. It went off a couple seconds later. It blasted my helmet off, my peltors to shred. It's got some scarring underneath my beard. I got scars up and down my leg. But generally speaking, that mud tamped that grenade and absorbed most of that explosion. And so now I'm shot. My nods are shot off. I get hit by a grenade just a couple seconds later.
That's annoying.
And he goes to crawl out of the hole, and our combo guy, eventually fills him with an absolute full mag. I mean, all 30 rounds into this guy.
Freaking ghost, dude.
And it's over. Kind of. So now he actually, he gets, as he's crawling out, he sends out a couple kind of security rounds and then tries to crawl out, and he hits our combo guy in the leg. And so our combo guy's shot and then kills him. I'm shot. I have no nods. I have an arm that to get to that point, we jumped a lot of walls trying to make a straight line to this point. Now I can't jump walls. I got can't forget these words. I got a tourniquet on my arm that without a doubt felt 10 times worse than getting shot. the tourniquet was absolutely excruciating. And it took us almost an hour to get back to our
Damn,
to
man,
our
I saw them. I didn't think it was
and
even
during this hour
a shining crown
we
dog.
made another mistake of it was
We're doing this
again
alone.
that village was pretty lively, and
Oh,
so
'cause it's
we're trying to
solo.
sneak
We're not
our
supposed to
way
be playing
back,
out.
but we can't use the back roads, if we will. Like, we literally kind of have to use trails and roads within the village to quickly get back to our element. Well, when we stopped and checked out all of my my injuries, we used red light because we were still in a tactical situation, which I know better. The problem with using a red light is you can't see blood underneath a red light. And now my biggest injury that I was concerned about was my arm. I didn't complain about the massive bleeding in my leg or in my side because I didn't even feel that had happened. And so we never did a full body check on me to see if I had any other injuries. We just addressed the big injury without addressing the, doing a full body check. Again, something we knew better than, and just, didn't do it right when it counted. So about 45 minutes into this walk back that we had to take the long way around, I start blacking out. And I don't know, at the time, I didn't know why I was blacking out. And I'm telling, like, hey guys, we got to stop. Like, I'm going to throw up and I'm about to pass out. And they're like, Brent, do not pass out. Like, we're not carrying your big ass. Like, we have another guy, with a shot leg. He can't carry you. Like, you've got to suck this up. And I remember telling you, hey, I don't control if I black out, guys. I'm just telling you it's about to happen. And they're like, well, do what you can. We eventually made it back to the rest of the element. And at this point I'm limping, and I don't even know why I'm limping. I just know my leg hurts. And our medic comes up to me and goes, as cool as a cucumber, hey Brent, how's it going? Not good, Dan, I'm shot. He goes, why? He goes, I can see that. He goes, anything else wrong with you? I said, no, I'm just shot. Please look at my arm. None of the fentanyl lollipops are working. I took everyone on patrol has a fentanyl lollipop, including me. I took mine. I took his. I'm eating everyone's fentanyl lollipop, trying to get rid of this pain, and it just wouldn't help with the pain at all. And he goes, what's wrong with your leg? I said, nothing. It's my arm. For the love of God, look at my arm. And he laughs, and he sticks his thumb in this hole in my leg and says, nothing? And I was like, oh, Dan, why would you do that? He's like, you're such an idiot. And he cuts off my pant leg. He's like, what happened to your leg? And that was the first time I really realized that I had eaten that grenade and didn't really know it. I was passing out from the loss of blood. Right. And by the time I actually got to the helicopter, I did pass out from a lack of blood, and I passed. I woke up in Bagram the next day, after surgery. And I remember sitting on the hospital bed going, that was a crazy night. I kind of can't believe we got out of that one.
That is an unbelievable story. How long is the road to recovery for you?
Not long. I never missed a rotation. I missed a couple jump trips. The biggest thing was they kept on doing washout surgeries on me because infection was a serious concern. I had taken my antibiotic pills. Luckily, it was one of the things I did do right. We were always told, you get shot, blown up, something, and in the nastiness of Afghanistan, you take these pills, and that's actually what saved my life. And even with those pills, infection was a big problem within my body. We finally got the infection under control. The doctors were trying to be nice, but they're like, hey, you should know, like, if we can't get this under control, you might lose your arm. And so, every time I went under surgery, I was always the first thing I checked to see if I still had my arm. They never ended up having to take my arm. They put a massive plate in there to keep my arm together. And the bones actually grow back pretty fast. And I was down for 3 months. Yeah, I wasn't back to 100%, but I could operate 3 months later, and like I said, never missed a rotation out of it.
Curious to get your opinion. Which one do you find to be the more complete dominant unit, and why?
This is it's funny you ask this, and so I just finished coaching football for 3 years, coaching high school football, which I was asked to do. I don't know any. I learned, but just because of like my coaching the heart and stuff. So the unit guys, we have heart. I mean, people meet me and they're just unimpressed. I mean, I'm just a 5'7" like dude, but you don't want to go against me. Still, you know what I mean? I will go against anybody and win. Like, it's just in me. But man, I mean, I know some SEAL Team 6 guys, and they just, I don't know, have better recruiting. They are just bigger and studlier. So it's like, if it's going to be UFC, we're probably going to lose, because we got just a lot of skinny, scrawny guys. But you know, little guys I know that killed more people than malaria. You know, so I don't know, man. Just SEAL Team 6, they're more impressive looking and sounding, and they're good dudes. Like, I met them, man. We work together sometimes over there, and I caught up with some of them on the TV show SEAL Team. So a lot of that hostility went away as you meet them and talk to them and stuff.
Right.
I mean, one of them put a laser on me, and I can never forgive that. Like, we're getting out of to go on a patrol, and this guy points his laser at me and my team leader, and you know, like, he's thinking we're bad guys, and it's like, so yeah, that was a problem.
How did that situation get resolved?
Oh God, man, it's like that's when our commanders really step in, when we do units, joint things together. You know, they're awesome.
Oh
they
my
don't.
God, I didn't want to do that.
We're better at hostage rescue.
Get out of the way.
You know, I was talking about some of these grabbing this.
Why would
it's
you
like,
put it
man,
underneath the thing?
that's our bread and butter. So
that's a good answer. They're better looking, is what you're saying, but
yeah,
you got to get a hostage. Call Delta Force.
yep.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Syria, because ISIS obviously did horrific things in Syria and Iraq. And I'm curious if you think the general public has any idea of the savagery of some of the people that we're dealing with in that region of the world. And I want to preface this. When I was in college, ISIS was starting to become like a really big problem. And I remember I was a poli-sci major, which was the most useless degree in the history of the world. But we would have debates about, like, you know, the rise of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all this terrorism stuff. And there were kids at a major university that were saying there's really no difference between the terrorists and us, and they're only terrorists because we backed them into a corner. I'm like, you realize they're burning people in cages, right? Dude, how different is it compared to the reality on the ground when you're dealing with those animals?
Animals is exactly what they are. You know, and people asking me about, so getting shot, losing teammates, PTSD, whatever it is, or if it's taking another person's life. And I always said, I never felt like I ever took another person's life. I shot a lot of two-legged animals. I shot a lot of people that were not human and did not deserve to be on this earth. So I sleep like a baby at night. And ISIS, without a doubt, was the most savage enemy we had come across. They had this young, when Raqqa was still their stronghold, they had this battalion called the Young Lions Battalion. And they were like 7 and 8-year-old kids, and they were training them to be soldiers, which isn't that unique, except their final exercise was they would put them through this like CQB shoot house, and they would have live people, like enemy, like POW, Kurds, Christians, bound and gagged. And the same way we would go through and shoot paper targets in a shoot house, they're shooting people on their final exercise, training these kids to murder. It's again, that Jordanian pilot that they set on fire alive in a cage.
That just seems kind of
The Coptic Christians in Israel that they marched, I think it was 40 of them to the beach and just murdered them. The beheadings, you name it,
wow.
they deserve
Shotgun blows at like 50 yards. Drops out after 30.
We should have gotten involved in that a lot earlier. That the only mistake America made was not doing anything until they had taken over half of Syria and half of Iraq, and now we were like, maybe we should do something about this. And as I got older, I'm not the person that says we should be the world's police. I had no problem pulling out of Afghanistan. I have no problem of not being the world's police. But the moment they started cutting off American heads, we should have showed up, and we could have, and ISIS would have been a blip on the radar. But they cut off 5 American heads, and we still didn't do anything about it until they had almost taken over Iraq. It really was a blunder on America's part, to be honest with you.
Does it feel better killing someone like that compared to maybe, a regime loyalist, or maybe I hear a lot of guys talk about some of the guys they fought in Afghanistan. They almost, I wouldn't say feel bad for them, but they're like, is this guy purely evil? Maybe, maybe not. But they all say when it came to ISIS, it just felt better. Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, the way I would rate it, if you will, and everyone will have a different, experience and a different answer. In Iraq, sometimes we were in the middle of a civil war. At some point, Afghanistan, I respected the guys in Afghanistan. They always come out to fight. They're at least willing to die for their cause.
Shot at me.
But man, I really, really, really hated ISIS. I never walked by a dead ISIS body with anything other than just joy.
Yeah, I deserve to die anyway.
I know that sounds weird, but
no, it doesn't sound weird. No, it doesn't sound weird at all.
Yeah.
Where ISIS presented it, and I am enjoying this a lot. I think our viewers are going to be fascinated by this, especially the younger ones. ISIS they projected, we're so tough, we're so violent, you can't reach the level that we get to. If you captured any of these guys, did they drop the tough guy act pretty quickly, or did they try to maintain that in custody?
You had a good mix of like some of the foreign fighters that would come through, that they were tenacious, and they'd look at you like, man, if you take these flex cuffs off me, I'd choke the life out of you right now. I mean, they just stare at you with dead eyes. You get a mixture of everything, and there are plenty of ISIS fighters on the front lines, especially when the march to Raqqa was going on, that they didn't want to be on the front lines, but it was either stay on the front lines and fight, or retreat and get killed by ISIS. And you could still say, well, you still enjoyed watching them die, because they raised their hand to come fight for evil, and then they found out what evil was, and so you already voted, you came to do this, and now be careful what you wish for.
What are your rules of engagement like in a situation like that, where it's not like World War II where guys are wearing uniforms? You can look over there like, oh, those are Germans, those are Japanese. It's like the civilian population is wearing, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much the exact same thing as everyone else. So do they have to fire to you first, or if you see a guy with an AK coming 200 yards off, can you engage him? What's the situation like that?
So, and here's something that I think is a misconception that everyone understands, is everyone has the same rules of engagements. Everyone's got the same rules of engagements, and the rules of engagements are
Kill the enemy.
Anyone that's a threat to you, you can engage. And there's two words I'm probably not going to remember them off the top of my head now that I'm on a podcast having to remember them. Immediate threat and imminent threat. Those are the two things that everyone has within their ROE, and I'll tell you exactly what that means. An immediate threat is exactly what you're talking about. A guy with an AK. I come
gun
into
in
a
that
room,
village. That's
I
weird.
turn the corner on the street. There's a guy with an AK, and it's not just a guy with an AK. He could be a policeman, but he looks at me and he raises his AK. He's an immediate threat to me. I can shoot him all day long, and those engagements are never questioned. They're cut and dry. Here's where it gets different, really, between the different units. Everyone has imminent threat as well, but not everyone acts on imminent threat in the same way, and I'll explain
I
that.
just got my favorite gun in this game.
Imminent threat means I'll make up a situation that's never happened. A guy could be on a cell phone across the street, and if I truly believe he's calling in a QRF, I don't have to wait for the QRF to get here to go, oh, I'm going to shoot that guy now because he was calling in a QRF on a cell phone. I mean, he's an imminent threat. If a guy is, and these are all subjective calls that the guy on the ground gets to make and has to live with. If a guy is running around, let's take it in Afghanistan. He's running to the base of the mountain, and if I believe, based on intel, that they have fighting positions at the base of the mountain, I don't have to wait for him to get to the base of the mountain and grab a gun to go, that's what I thought, and now that he's armed, we'll shoot it out. I can shoot him as he's running away, going to that, to that fighting position. But you'll be questioned on it, and you better be able to articulate, and with reasonable justifications of why you took those shots. Because I also assure you, even though they seem like loose rules of engagements, and they kind of are, but if you have a guy on your team taking advantage of those, he'll find his way off the team really quick. That we're not the evil people the rest of the world perceives us to be. We don't put up with that. And really more importantly, to me, it's more of a the unit will ask you this all the time. It's not necessarily the decision you made. They want to know why you made that decision.
How do I get up there?
Why did you make it? So you could have the same decision, but the reason you made it could be wrong, and that says way more about it. So if you have a guy that is perceiving things to just not be the ground truth, and he's shooting at people because what is really happening is something way more dangerous in his mind, then he doesn't have a good grasp on the reality of the situation, and that's more or less the reason why we're going to get rid of him.
Well, so that's actually so very quickly. I got lucky, and so I was there after Anaconda. So after Anaconda happened, which basically moved all the Taliban to essentially Pakistan. So when I got there was right after Anaconda. So we basically, that deployment, we built all the outstations on the Pakistani, but near the Pakistani border. So all the places that you hear about, Asadabad, Jalalabad, the Korgal Valley, which it really wasn't called out at that time, but all those areas, that's when we built those fire bases. And so I was lucky. I was at a very, very small, it was really like a small compound it was just one platoon. I was a sniper at that time, and I got attached to a unit team because they didn't have a sniper. So I got to work with them on a couple missions, and after that I was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. And so then as soon as I got back from Afghanistan, I put in a packet.
So let me ask you about that. I want to drill down. See, you're attached to a unit team. You're not a member of the unit at this time. You're an Army Ranger. What was your perception of those guys the first time you got to work with them? Because I hear from a lot of people, and I'll paraphrase, when they work with members from the unit, it's like they think they're larger than life. Like, these dudes are superheroes compared to the rest of us. Is that kind of the same impression you had?
The best way I can describe it, or not the best way I can describe it, a thing that does a great job of capturing it is Black Hawk Down. I mean, they really did a good job. I mean, you saw them as gods, and when I was a Ranger, I was just like, it was like when it came to combat, it was like they were Morpheus. It's like they knew what was going to happen before, it was very strange. And also actually the guy that led the team that I was attached to, and I'll just say this now because it's what are the odds? 4 year, whatever, I don't forget the exact time, but 4 years later, that guy that ran that team, 4 years later, he is the exact same person that put the tourniquet on my arm.
Walk me through how this happens, because it's an explosive device. What do you remember from how it went down?
So there's a lot to give the full explanation of why. I can't give the full explanation of why what happened. Talk about the thing that I can't talk about.
Got it. No, I understand.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate because if I could talk about that part, it would make so much sense. But the very short version is we were in Solder City that night, and we did an offset. So we were walking through Solder City at night, and we hit a house. Like, that's the house. We hit the house. We go inside, and it's just like, I assume, like law enforcement. You can tell when you go in a house if the people are guilty or not. You can just feel it. Generally, in my experience, if you go in there and they're shouting and the women are going crazy, and it's the wrong house. If you go in and no one says a word, it's the right house. Because the guilty just shut up and don't say anything. The not guilty, you're like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Guilty, they're just like, yeah, we know why they're here. It's not surprising. They're not happy about it, but they're not surprised. And so anyways, that house, I was like, nah, just not these people. And so anyways, we heard that I think 2 teams, they're like, hey, we actually think it's over here. So 2 teams went out. One was actually a team from the unit that I now play on TV, that was attached to us. They went out. They went on the front side, or went around to go to the front side of this other house, and my team was basically going towards the back side of the house. So very shortly, what happened was it was the wrong house, and when we hit that one house, the actual house it was, which was next door, which is not exactly next door because Solder City is kind of weird of how it's built. But, they heard us. They were getting ready, prepping, their gear, and so they were ready to go. So when that team came around, a bunch of dudes opened up out of the front, what I assume would be the living room, with AKs and shot, I think they shot 3. If I'm not mistaken, they shot 3 of the members of that team. 2 of them were pretty much out of the fight at that point. But they were, it was heavy fire. I wasn't on that side of the house, but just hearing it, I was like, oh man, that's extreme. So we ran in. I ran into the back door, which came into the kitchen, cleared through there, went the hallway, and those same guys, as we approached that room, shot through the walls of that hallway, shot the guy literally right next to me. So then we backed off, and then we were in and I got to try it out, but we were in tactical position. It was just there wasn't a lot we could do. So we were trying to kind of figure out how to solve it. And the next thing I know, I remember just the whole room, or actually it wasn't really a room, it was the hallway, so it was more like a tube straight at me, and just everything exploded. And I actually remember hitting the ground and looking up down the hallway. I was just confused. I didn't know what had happened. And I can say, getting shot at, okay. It's one thing, but the explosion made me feel small. It was like a superhero just grabbed me and was like, or it was like the Hulk grabbed me and was like, it felt like a supernatural power. And it blew, so it was a nighttime hit. It blew my nods and my nod mount off my face. So I went from, under nods to not being able to see anything. It obviously, my arm, I thought it blew off. I'm trying to think of what else it wrecked. It wrecked several things, but and everything was pitch black for me, and I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt my arm was blown off, so I got up and walked outside to the back, and there was a wall that we had hopped to get in. That wasn't happening, so I just put my back against the wall and tried to take care of myself. But I never lost consciousness. The only time actually I did lose consciousness is when, and I still to this day don't know how they got me over that wall. I have no idea. But other than that, probably 5 minutes that they got me over the wall, I never lost consciousness.
And I am literally stunned. I don't even know what to say. That is every part of that story, from the moment the first shots rang out to you getting back over the wall, losing consciousness, is hard for me, who's obviously never been in a gunfight, and I assume most people watching this who've never been in a gunfight, to even comprehend. Did you take a moment? Was there a moment when you looked down at your arm and you kind of understood, like, oh shit, like I'm in deep trouble? Or were you in such a state of shock that you didn't even really, quite frankly, understand what had just happened to your body? And if you can explain, how much of your arm are you able to see? Like, do you have a good assessment of how damaged it is in the moment?
So that's not a question I think I've ever been asked, but it's a good question. So when it happened, it killed the nerve in my arm to about here. So and I know this sounds weird, but it's the best way to describe it. So it felt gone from here. It felt not there. I know that sounds weird. And then I got outside, and there was a porch light, and I looked at
Arise. Solo leveling, the very first game adaptation.
I didn't know that if I shot my flare, it'd be all the way across the map. There's someone else
and if
grabbing
you can
my
see,
shit. Look.
This was all gone. I mean, it was holding on by, basically half my arm, and it was broken in, I want to say 8 places, so I can't even replicate how it was hanging. And then up here, this was flayed out this way, and this was flayed out this way. So from about just above my wrist to my shoulder, when I looked at my arm in that light, I mean, it was hamburger. It was done. It was hamburger meat. It was zombie flesh. So yeah, I looked at it and I went, well, that's gone. That's going.
It's dumb.
And I knew it was bad.
I drop a fucking care package, and everyone else gets it
but
but
me. My first
me.
thing was, well, the arm's going. I'm losing my right arm. That sucks. And then I thought, and I'll never forget this thought in a million years. Then I literally saw that I had an arterial bleed, and I went, you're losing your arm. And then I was like, oh, I've got an arterial bleed. Which, if you have an arterial bleed, you've got I'll be conservative and say 45 seconds to a minute to do something before you won't die, but in about 45 seconds, you're going to lose enough blood to where it's going to be hard for you to have the strength to solve it, if that makes sense. So
Shit.
I remember seeing that and going, well, okay. Yeah, you're going to lose your right arm, but you better solve that bleed or you die. And that would be stupid. Don't know why I used that word, but in my head, I remember saying, and then you die, and that would be stupid. So, yeah, I knew how bad it was. And I'll tell you this, after I looked at it under that light, I did not, and I'm not exaggerating. Well, I did actually look at it one more time, but I didn't look at my arm uncovered for probably a year. I literally ignored it. In fact, in hindsight, I should have wore a freaking eye patch on my right eye. I just didn't look. I didn't want to be reminded of it. The next time I looked at it was actually when they saved it, because they told me they were going to cut it off when I went into surgery. But I woke up the next morning, looked over, it was there, and they saved it. And actually, by the way, they told me. Now, again, I was on a lot. When they told me that they were going to cut it off, I was on quite a lot of drugs. I was like, do whatever you want, cut off the legs, but I don't care. I was like, crazy. But they told me when they saved it, the only reason that they even attempted to save it was because how many extremity surgeries they had done during that time frame because of V-beds. So they just were now so advanced on, and again, I don't know the details, but they just had new techniques. He said a year ago, we would have cut it off without even attempting to, again, do something different.
Did you ever find out what had happened to all the bad guys that were in the house? Did anyone ever kind of debrief you and say, hey, after the explosion went off, here's kind of how everything shook out afterwards?
Yes, that was years later, but yes. Yeah. I've never told anyone this, but I'll tell you, or everyone watching this. Only one person lived on that whole thing. And only one person lived, and the reason that person lived is because I didn't shoot him. And I could have. He actually had an AK. When I came into the room, his gun hit me in the chest.
And so sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, his gun hit, it was so close. I turned and his gun hit me. And the only reason I didn't shoot him is I could see behind him. I can't remember if it was pink or purple, but it was a color that stood out. I want to say pink, but again, I don't remember. But I could see like a pink or purple outline behind him. His wife was behind, or one was, I don't know, was behind him. And that, in that, millisecond, so I ended up taking the gun from him. I threw him outside the room. They took him, but he's the only one that lived. And ironically, it's one of my few regrets of my time, because that guy ended up being the main facilitator of the whole thing.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So all the other guys, they weren't around to do anything anymore. But for many years, I wondered if he went through the system and then got out and went and hurt other people. So one of my biggest regrets is that.
Interesting. That's a fascinating answer. I want to get in now to the injury, the explosion, and then you transitioning into that non-combat role. Are you able to talk about it all, what happened and how you were hurt?
Yeah, I mean, it's all second and third hand information. I don't remember any of it. We were in Al Qaim, out in the western part of Iraq, and we were, hunting targets out there.
That was close.
It was told to me we had a target close to the Syrian border, and basically due to assets we had to drive out there. The Marines that we were there with told us that that area is in mind for forever. You probably shouldn't drive. Well, it came down to it. That was the option that we had. Well, we took a mine clearing team. They cleared the way as we went. The two Humvees that were with the mine clearing team in front of us, we were the lead vehicle in our element. We were in a very large, armored personnel carrier called a Pensgauer. I'm sorry, a Pander. And anyway, so we were driving, and again, I don't remember, but I guess the two vehicles, two Humvees in front of us, drove over pressure plate IEDs. They weren't heavy enough to set them off. We were. Explosion went off. That successfully detonated a thermobaric weapon, which is like a rocket of sorts that when it shoots out, when it goes off, it puts explosive dust in the air, and then that ignites. It's mainly major clearing caves and buildings and stuff. So that went off inside the vehicle too. Killed, as there's 6, 7, 8 of us in the vehicle. Killed 4 pretty much instantly, or within 24 hours it expired. And then the other 3 of the remaining 4 were maimed pretty good, and one just walked away. It was kind of amazing, and it was we were numbered, so we had 6 guys on a team. Team leader being number 1, some letter combination number 1, down to 6 as the newest guy. And then we had a ranger as a gunner, and then one of our NBC guys, or nuclear, biological, chemical guys, was our driver. Of the 6 guys on our team, it killed everybody, regardless of where it was seated. It killed everybody that was even number was married or had kids. All the single guys and the odd numbers are just named or left untouched, which was kind of odd. But again, I don't remember any of it.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Hold on, story. We're gonna do that part 1. It's a good ending spot.